But thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat to me. I caught the film the other night and really enjoyed it. So
thanks for having us. We're excited.
Quite keen to have a chat about it. Obviously, it's we're here to talk about the fact that it's screening at Glasgow Fright Fest as part of the Glasgow Film Festival. Obviously, in an ideal world, I guess you guys would want to come over and be part of the festival. But how are you feeling about the digital screening?
Oh, it's sad that we don't get to go. I love the UK. I haven't been to Scotland yet, but I've been to all over London and Ireland, and both Irelands, I guess. I love Scotch, so I wish I could be there drinking with the moviegoers. But we're excited that seems to be getting like a lot of attention, even in the virtual space there. So they seem to be doing a really good job with getting the word out and getting people excited.
I mean, yeah, obviously we, made this movie dreaming about and thinking about seeing it with an audience the whole time. So like we shot it a certain way to be like, okay, it's going to be anamorphic and, as much as we can get on the screen, and we mix it a certain way where it's like, let's put everything in there and the music. So everything was always done visualizing like, let's see this in a theater with some people, but the world's had other plans. So we are excited that people get to see it and enjoy it in whatever form they can. So those who have gotten a chance to see it in a live audience, we're so thrilled for them. And those who will see it in different ways, we're just happy that it's getting out there. It's been a real, obviously a labor of love, as any independent film would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have had some previous films like The Wind and The Mortuary Collection have played at Fright Fests in the past. So I'm guessing you're sort of familiar with that audience and how they might accept this film.
Well, I didn't get to go to either of those screenings. I wish I had. There's sometimes we got you start going to a lot of festivals and you're like, well, on the next movie we'll go to that one. Didn't happen this time, unfortunately, but I hope they like it. I mean, I know, like you said, we've had a couple movies that played there that we've produced in various capacities, and it seems like they were really well received. So I hope we have the same type of turnout with this one. We'll see what virtual audience shows up. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we love the horror audience in any film festival. We're always excited about. I mean, it's always such a great crowd. They really get behind movies that are exciting. They want to see something different, and so we're we know that the fans in Glasgow hopefully will enjoy the movie, and really wish we could. Yeah, I mean, I can't say it. We can't say it enough. We wish we could be there. And sometimes you hear that. Sometimes you'll hear like a celebrity. We're not celebrities, obviously. Well, you'll hear someone say that, and you're like, you don't really want to be there. But we absolutely want to be there. It's just killing us.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys were previously working on The Muppets. How do you go from The Muppets to a film about demonic possession?
It's a lot easier than you think.
we had puppets in this movie too. But yeah, I mean, Marcus and I have been making horror movies since we were in college together in the 90s. So we've always had that kind of love in our heart for that type of cinema. But just in general, world creation stuff, animation, Muppets, puppets, prosthetics, movie magic. That's kind of what drags us into all this. We really love that side of it. And we've been working 10, 11 years now with the Muppets studio, producing all kinds of things for them and directing stuff and writing stuff. So that was always, that's been a dream come true time and time again, every time we get to do that. And but yeah, we do a lot of, we have a lot of interests for sure. And but this time, when we made this movie, we're like, well, let's get a real creature in there, and a real puppet, and work with some of the people we know who do that type of stuff, but in a different capacity that's not as family friendly, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, definitely, like our experiences with puppets, like Chris has said, we've worked with the Muppets for a decade, and other things. We've done a lot of different commercial projects and marketing projects and short form and whatever. But those experiences specifically gave us the confidence to kind of go for it, without too many spoilers, but we have talked, there's a creature in the movie. So knowing that we would have maybe some experience to draw on to go like, okay, if we have a physical thing and puppet it and have a performer in a suit and paint out the rigs or whatever we needed to do, we knew we'd be able to kind of do that. So, I think any independent film and independent filmmakers kind of draw on their own experiences to go like, okay, well, this is something I think we can pull off. This is a location I think we can get for nothing. This is whatever. And so that was kind of built into the thinking of the film, even, before the script was written, was like, hey, when we get to the end of this, are we going to have something? Are we going to put a creature in this? And if we are, we have to write towards that. And Chris was like, yeah, absolutely. If we're going to do this, let's do it. So that was a thrill. I mean, honestly, like an exciting thing to kick off the movie was like, okay, great. And at the end of the movie, we'll get to see this thing. So we were excited about that.
Cool. I mean, where did the idea originate from?
I guess I can speak to that a bit. So, I've been trying to figure out a story that we could pull off ourselves. So you listed a few other movies that we've worked on, and we always try to figure out the right scale and the right size for it. And I was really excited about trying to do a movie at this size, but really try to make it unique. And I thought back to some stories that my mother had kind of told me about her growing up in Puerto Rico, where with like a bruja and somebody who came to the house and did a cleansing on her father. And my mother's like super Catholic and doesn't mess with any of that sort of stuff. But that's why it was so fascinating to hear about it. I was like, oh my God, this is something. And I could see it in my culture. And then I could see it as I spoke to other people from Latin descent, similar like threads of like, oh, I know this and I know Santeria and I know that. So I thought, wow, there's a real like story here that I'm fascinated by, and hopefully other people will be fascinated by. And the idea of doing a sort of exorcism story, but from a totally different point of view, not only from our protagonist, but also just like a cultural point of view. And I knew that for Chris, because like Chris said, we've been buddies since college. I knew he would really dig into the world building, the research, figuring out where this story is set, figuring out all those visuals that tie it all together. So at its core, we knew we wanted to make a story that was like scary from a different cultural point of view. And as we discovered along the way, we discovered that there was a much richer story we could tell once we really put the characters in there and started playing around with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the archaeological side of it, in pre-production and the screenwriting stage is really exciting because you start learning about other people and other times and other cultures, and you start finding just these amazing stories and angles and artistic references and historical references, and it really starts to just come to life and kind of evolve on its own once you start walking down the right path and talking to the right people and finding experts, and even all the way through production where we're hiring teammates who, these guys who are experts in ancient Mexican music came on as consultants and performers with our composer, and everybody all the way through. We just kept finding amazing people with their own stories to add to it and their own take. And it's been a really cool learning experience for everybody. And I think it makes the movie richer.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, nice to see something that's not, an American or a British priest that's, at odds with the church, and, then he comes back in, there's nobody hollering, the power of Christ compels you, it's definitely, it's definitely offers something fresh and, and new for this sort of film, because, it has become kind of a little bit tired.
Yeah, I mean, there have been great movies that have done that, but they started being done in like the 70s. And for us, like that was really an important part of it and felt right for the research and the story. And then we also decided to, with the symbology in the movie, we went against all the stuff you've seen before. So we don't have, pentagrams and upside down crosses and things like that, because anything that felt like it was a ground that had already been treaded, great, that's been done, and there's wonderful movies and there's still movies that surprise me when they still do it, and I'm like, oh my god, this is still like a fresh kind of take on it. But we really knew for ourselves that it wouldn't feel, if we felt like we were doing something someone else had done, we were trying to like zig away from it and zag away from it and just try to stay as honest and true to our central conceit and create something new.
And again, and it, as we sort of touched on before, it's nice to see, a different culture on screen that is, horribly underrepresented, especially, within like a horror genre. Now we are getting to see, different voices, which I think is a really positive thing to be getting out into the world.
Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely. Yeah, and here in LA, we have, more than 50% of our population is from that region, or at least a generation or two removed. And had so many people, that we were able to tap into just here locally, even though it felt so remote in some ways, but everybody's got a story, and everybody had the same type of story as Marcus and his mom. And it was amazing. Once you just started asking questions, how many people would come out of the woodwork, it was really exciting.
I mean, it's a very small cast. I imagine that most people think, the fewer the actors, the easier it is to find people. But I'm guessing that probably wasn't the case.
Yeah. It's
Well,
hard. Yeah. Well, it makes it easier in some ways, logistically. One thing we really found, and we've done a couple of movies now as producers lately that are very contained. And especially when you follow one person's point of view, that's when it starts tying your hands quite a bit in post, in particular. Like, you can't edit away to somebody else, cooking a dinner somewhere. Like you kind of have to stick the landing more often, and you don't have as many escape hatches, I guess, in editing, and so that makes it a lot harder for me. As a director, just because you've got to make sure you're doing it right. You're thinking enough steps down the line while it's happening to make sure you're not going to get backed into a corner that you can't get out of, if that makes any sense. And then we did have a few scenes where all 4 actors were on screen at once, all doing different parts of a ritual, and those were really hard for me, because it was a smaller space, and trying to figure out how do we block this and make it make sense and have everybody have something to do and not just twiddling their thumbs, and how do we cover it properly. And sometimes it is easier with just one person, because you know where to aim the camera when it comes to that. But yeah, it's a little both, but I think the next movie we do will have more than one character with the agency to control the story from time to time, so that we have a little more freedom, because you really do write, they always say, you write the movie 3 times and you're rewriting it in post, and if you only have one place to go, it's hard without changing the timeline. It's very difficult to mess around much. So I don't know.
I'll just speak a little bit about the actors themselves. I mean, in casting them, we got extremely lucky early on with some of our castings. So like Sal Lopez, who plays Javi, he was like, we saw him and instantly was like, that's the dude, this is great. Julia Vera, who plays Luz, same thing. It was like, oh my God, look at what she's doing. She had such a physicality and she just brought so much to it. So we saw a few people, but she was the one. And Andrea Cortez, who plays Miranda, she was also like, the moment we saw the audition, we were like, oh my God, it's so easy. And then for casting our lead, that took forever. We kept finding people who could bring different parts of the character to it, but not all of it. And we actually pushed shooting the movie, and that's like a deadly thing for a movie that doesn't have a budget, but we pushed it by a couple of weeks because we didn't have our lead, and it was very intense, and we didn't want to compromise because the whole movie hinged on that character. And luckily, Bridget Cali Canales came in, did the read right at the last minute, the last possible minute we could have cast anybody, and she blew us all away. And that was just the beginning. Like day after day on the set, you can see it in the movie, she puts everything into it, in every scene, kept us honest with every scene because she was living in it, and it was amazing. And we couldn't, so in terms of just casting the movie, it was so simple for all of it, except for the one huge role. And luckily, it fortuitously, she came in right at the last moment, showed us everything she had, and we knew we had a movie.
Yeah, and I mean, she is phenomenal in it. And it's not just, she's not just acting with other people or herself, she's, there's animals and stuff as well. So, you really threw the gauntlet at her, that's quite intense.
Yeah, it was kind of like, did you read the script? Like, are you sure you want to do this? Because you're going to go through some stuff.
We spent weeks trying to come up with, what's the safe, smart, least impactful way we can pull this stuff off that's not going to ruin this woman's life. And we finally find her, and we'd get there to the day and she'd be like, oh, just tie me up. Yeah, just let this, I don't want to see the snakes. Just let them go. I don't want to meet them until they're attacking me and stuff like that. And like, are you sure? She's like, yeah. She's like, I think, and she's like learning a lot about herself even while she's making this movie. She's like, I think I'm kind of method. I'm like, yeah, you think? Like she would, we would literally tie her with, and the art director would come up with this brilliant. It's like, well, it's Velcro, but it looks like it's strong. But if you need to get out, you can just do this. And she's like, I don't want that. I just tie it, or it won't feel real. Okay.
Wow. It sort of reminds me of Alex Esso in the film Starry Eyes, where there's a scene where her character has cockroaches in her mouth, and she went there. She was like, guys, no, do it. So, no, we can do it, with effects in post. And she's like, no, I just give me them. I'll just eat them. And so, yeah, that's.
Yeah. We did that with, I produced a movie with Roxanne and Benjamin, where the one character was supposed to have a mouthful of maggots. And he was like, yeah, I'll just, they had a dummy in him. He's like, I'll just do it. Because he was also like a stunt guy and he's crazy, he loves doing stuff. Filled his mouth full of maggots, filmed it, and it got cut out of the movie.
That was just an elaborate practical joke.
Like, sorry, dude. Save it for the DVD.
I mean, I have to say, I was very pleased to see Sal Lopez. I'm a big, not so closeted Return of the Living Dead 3 fan. So it was nice to see a sort of familiar face pop up.
Oh my God, you would love to know that was your. It's
funny.
Always like Full Metal Jacket with that guy and some other
for
things.
For me, it was constantly like in between takes, like, tell me what it was like being on Full Metal Jacket.
But that's awesome. Yeah, he is just the best. He's so good. He brought so much to that role. I love him so much, and he's awesome. And that he brought some other things to the movie. And there's a scene where there's a ritual happening, and he has, and forgive me, I don't know the name of the actual name, but he has these things wrapped around his ankles that make like a rattling sound, and it's part of an Aztec dance, like a setup that he has, because he studies that. So when we found out that he studied Aztec dance, we said, well, yes, please, let's bring that into the movie and make that something we can build off of. And it just gives such texture and interest to that scene. And that was just something, I mean, he's just awesome.
Yeah, those were his own instruments or costume. I'm not sure what you describe them as, but yeah, it's they're made out of dried seed pods, and he brought them in himself. And he's part of I guess once a year at his church downtown LA, they do like a cultural heritage festival, and he and this whole troupe do a whole like ritual, like a whole routine that they practice all year for, and it's supposed to be really cool, but it's been on lockdown ever since I met him, so I haven't been able to see it. But he also introduced us to some amazing musicians as well that he's known for years. Yeah, he's great. He's got lots of good stories, always good stories.
Nice. And one thing that I sort of thought when I was watching it was that, I mean, I've seen a lot of sort of indie, low budget horror films and films in general, but I thought the film looked so expensive. Like even the quality of the screener that I watched was way beyond what I normally get sent over. So sort of wondering how, and what I'm guessing was quite a modest budget, how you guys sort of worked to get the most out of the film so that it does look so good on the screen.
Thank you.
First
Yeah,
of all, thank you so much.
we work with the studios all the time, and we have that aesthetic in mind, and that production quality is kind of always foremost in our heads as far as doing professional work. And we would just work with amazing people, and we had amazing producers. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, like, but and I think it's taste. I mean, you can do a lot with a little if you try hard enough, I guess, and if you have experience. I mean, it's definitely experience comes into play when making decisions, because
Yeah.
you aim it this way and it looks terrible, and you aim it over here and you set everything up properly and spend enough time hazing the room and get everybody, working in chorus, and you can pull off some pretty cool things, I think. But it's fighting, it's knowing what to give up a lot of times. Like, well, we really wanted this kind of lens, so what are we going to give up, or we really wanted a big thing that we fought for, or that I fought for, was days. Like, I gave up a lot for just having more days, because that's so many times you get to it and you get to the end climax of a movie and they shoot it in 4 hours, and it's like, well, that sucks. It's like, why did we wait all this time for that? So, we didn't have a lot of days. I think we shot 25 days, but a lot of like low budget sub-$1 million horror movies are like 15 days, 20 days, and it adds up, and just for our climax alone, we dedicated 3 or 4 days to pulling it off, which is like 5 or 6 times more time than we've ever spent on that part of a movie before. And we just knew, because every time, and even at festivals that I go to, like, and I'm loving the movie, and it's a slow burn movie or whatever, but then you get to the end and it's like, oh, like, we needed more, just time. I mean, time is what makes all the difference, because you're able to block it properly and get enough takes and get enough angles and get enough blood, and you got to clean that stuff up between takes. And it's like, if it takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes to reset, how many times are you going to do that scene in 4 hours or 5 hours? So that's the thing we fought for the most, and I think it paid off in spades. It really made a huge difference. And there were a few days that we had to shoot 8 pages to make up for that, but usually we were doing like 3 pages a day, and it just makes a huge difference. People aren't as tired, you get more time to rehearse, you get more time to have happy accidents and follow your things that surprise you, and it just all kind of adds up to better, and people have more time to set up. It just all adds up. So that was, I think, the biggest thing, was just squeezing as many days out as we possibly could, and prep beforehand as much as we could.
Yeah, definitely a huge part of it is that. And like, just like Chris said, like knowing what we need to give up and put our attention into the things that'll be the most rewarding. So like, we had a whole sequence where we were like, oh, we'll build like an interior of a cave and a set, and we'll do this, and it'll be like a dream sequence and all that. And our production designer just kept saying like, there's no way I can make this look good. And then we just had to trust, like, okay, let me rewrite it, and let's rethink about how we're going to do it, because we had to trust that. And that just comes from, that's where like our years of not experience making movies necessarily, but experience in doing different kinds of productions and all that stuff just lends us to trust the people that are on our teams as well. So like, for example, the set that was built in the movie, that was a great cost savings because of how smartly it was done by this individual named Bryce Parent, who, when I had originally written it, it was individual rooms and we'd go from room to room. And he said, listen, that's going to be way too expensive. We need to find a way to make this one big space, and I can build it this way, and I can build it with these materials that are movable and changeable. And he came up with a brilliant design that just looks so good and rich. But if we would have stuck with what was on the page originally and didn't rewrite it, it wouldn't have looked the way it looked. It wouldn't have moved. We wouldn't have been able to move through the space the way we did and do it that way. So we really had to, rely on our people working on the movie to just go like, what do you think we can pull off, and let you operate at the highest level you can, and then let's work it back and forth. And honestly, it was a discussion. Like once we saw the walls go up and what it looked like, it was like, okay, we got to rewrite these scenes because now we can see into that other room, but it provides us this other exciting thing because we can see into the other room. So what does that mean? So it was an evolution. All of it though goes back to Chris's point, time. Like if we didn't have the time to figure that out, Chris and his DP, Adam Lee, who's a brilliant DP, he did such a beautiful job on this movie. They literally shot the movie on their iPads before they shot the movie. So they got on the set as it was still being constructed. And there's a guest appearance. So they got into the set as it was being constructed and started shooting the movie on their iPhones, so that when we came to the day, we knew exactly what the movie was going to play out like. And that was, again, just time, like weeks before shooting, shot the whole movie, then shot the movie again with the real actors. Pretty amazing.
Definitely. I mean, it was one of the lucky films that just managed to sort of finish photography before the pandemic took hold of the world. So I'm guessing that meant that all of post was remote. What was that experience like?
You're looking at our post suites right now. Yeah, we literally wrapped on I think March 12th or something like that, and we weren't able to have our wrap party. The lockdown happened between our wrap and our wrap party, so we got out by the skin of our teeth and did all of post over Zoom and Google Chats, and our editor and Marcus and I are pretty much just on this all day long, working on scenes, downloading stuff, emailing it back and forth, doing the VFX. It was, it was plus and minus. I mean, I was able to work on it 7 days a week, which was nice, and still, go on walks with the family and all that kind of stuff in between. And normally you kind of camp out in a post place and you never see anybody and you're in a hole the whole time. So it was fine. Like we worked through it. I mean, my editor and I had planned on working from home on occasion because we both have young kids, and sometimes you got to be home early to get them down, but then you could work after they go to bed. And so we had already prepped all of our footage and a workflow that would make sense for that. We just didn't realize that was going to be the whole, like the only workflow. But it was fine. There was a little bit more manual kind of making sure everybody had all the up-to-date files and bins and source material and stuff like that. But it still was less time than driving in and out of the office every day. And, we got a lot of quality time out of it. But the weirdest part was I literally didn't see, I think me and Marcus and Matt, the editor, we never saw the movie together until we were mixing it. That was the first time we ever saw it in the same room as anybody, really. And the real thing for me, that the worst part about the lockdown post thing was not getting to do test screenings with friends and family, especially for a horror movie where you're really depending on tone and mood and atmosphere, and timing is so important. And you just get so much info from seeing people squirm in their seats or scream or laugh or get bored or whatever is going on with them, that we were able to do Q&As and stuff with people and like little questionnaires, but it's not the same as like the real time experience of just seeing how it's affecting them in the moment. And we still haven't had that. We were hoping by now we would have had a chance to see it with an audience somewhere, but it's seeming like maybe April or so would be the earliest we'll be able to see it with anybody, which is kind of a shame. But other than that, I think there's a future in doing it like this, at least to a certain degree. There's times where it'd be nice to be in the same room, but we made it work.
Definitely. I mean, you guys are both sort of stepping away from the film. You're both involved in Soapbox. I just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the company and what you guys do and what you hope that the company will achieve in the future.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff. We started off as doing primarily marketing for movies, for Disney and Fox and Pixar and stuff like that. We have evolved over the past almost 18-ish years, maybe 19 almost, doing a lot of what they call branded content, entertainment type stuff, short form usually, sometimes longer. And then we've dabbled in feature film production. We've produced or executive produced probably close to 10 or 12 movies over the last 8 to 10 years. So we've built a whole facility that in Burbank where we have a sound stage, editors, writers, motion graphics, VFX, audio. So we're really able to do it all from start to finish, which is, now put us in a place where we can experiment and do projects like this that don't necessarily have a guaranteed pipeline to where they're going to be seen, but we believe in ourselves enough to make it, and hopefully it'll get out there and be seen by people all over the world. And it's been quite a process. But like you said, we work with the Muppets a lot. We did a TV show for them for Disney Plus that we did most of the post of that in lockdown as well. And that was, and some of the production even, that was pretty exciting. And now we're working for almost all the studios and the streamers and various commercial outlets and stuff like that.
And I guess, when you asked that question earlier, like, how do you make a movie at this budget look the way it does? I guess the other secret sauce besides time is Soapbox Films. I mean, the fact that we own a sound stage and we could shoot in it, the fact that we have a Foley stage and we have a, surround sound mixing room and color correction and all that stuff are things and tools that we've built up over the years at the company. Now, we built them for our clients, but on the side, we built them for ourselves. And thinking of ourselves as filmmakers, like what are the facilities we'd want? It's a little overkill sometimes for marketing, but it's exactly what we need for making movies. So, I think when we were super young and starting the company and thinking about it, I mean, it was always like, hey, we figure out a way where we could make movies, but like people would pay us to do other things also, because it's kind of hard to make movies for no money. And 20 short years later, we've accomplished that goal. So kids, if you're watching at home, then that's all you need to do is do that. Just start something up.
Just spend half your life, and it'll be overnight. It'll be great.
I mean, have you guys had time to sort of think what comes after the old ways?
Yeah, we're working on. I mean, if this movie, finds an audience, there's so many other avenues we could take in this world. I mean, it's a really rich world. We've set up. It's right here. Look how thick this is. This is the red book. There are lots of demons, pages and pages of demons in here that are left to be explored. There's prequels, there's sequels, there's all kinds of stuff we could do if people want it. We are also working on some other. It's kind of a weird time because we don't know how soon we're going to get back to larger scale production. So we're kind of in a middle ground where we're trying to develop some really inexpensive, like go shoot it at a house kind of projects, and some bigger ones that we could pitch, assuming people like what we've done with this one and want to hear more. So we're kind of in limbo with that, but we're working on various scales of projects, I guess you would say, just in case if we get back in, in 6-7 months, we're like, making big movies again, then let's have a big movie ready to go. But if it's like shoestring, find 5 people who are willing to get a COVID vaccine and hang out in a bubble for a month, then we've got those kind of ideas that we're gestating as well.
Yeah, for Chris and I, obviously we love the old ways a lot, and if we could make more stories in that world, we will. But the fun of the movie also was, we knew if we were putting this movie together, we didn't want to just make it like, we wanted to make a movie that represented what we like, what our interests are, what we're excited about. So, movies that are thrilling, this movie has some elements of fantasy in it and some real elements of world building. So we really do think that, whether it's the old ways that we do, another old ways that we do next, or something else at a bigger scale or a different scale, it's always going to have those elements that we really loved and poured into this movie. And that's really what's going to drive whatever we do next. So, hopefully we'll be up and shooting soon. we got all sorts of ideas, but we just got to figure out, the right plan forward for everything.
And we're slowly, we've been getting back into production from a commercial standpoint, so things are happening.
Yeah.
It's also tenuous. It's a lot easier to plan a 3-day shoot than a, month and a half, 2 months shoot, because you just never know what surprises are going to show up in the next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the idea of the old ways universe, a la, the Conjuring universe, is definitely quite a nice prospect.
That'd be fun.
We would love. Yeah, I mean, it could just. There's so many different versions of it we've thought of. Different cultures, the same culture, different timelines. So it's pretty rich already, and I think there's a lot more we could tap into. But it's just a matter of, do people want that? Will they show up for it? I guess we'll find that stuff out over the next 6-7 months, hopefully, and the festivals like Fright Fest showing up. Hopefully, we'll find out more.
Yeah. Kat, go tell everyone about it.
Well, I'm going to do my best. I guess sort of my final question is, when people do sit down to watch the old ways, what do you hope that they take from the experience?
You want to go, Chris? You want me to go?
You go. You're better.
Me go. Yes. You know what? Honestly, at the first level, I hope they're thrilled. I hope they're scared, because that we were trying to build a movie that, I'm a huge horror fan. Probably Chris is also a big horror fan, but I don't think he'd be offended to say I'm much bigger. Like all of my favorite movies, are the Nightmare on Elm Streets and The Thing and like whatever, The Ring. And I've always loved horror movies. I love sharing it with people. I love the experience of it. So when we started thinking about making this movie, I thought, okay, I just want to make sure that I can, like, in the script, bring as much of that as I can and bring just a movie that I would be thrilled to see. So I hope for at the first level, we accomplished that, and they feel at the end of it, it was a story worth seeing. But then beyond that, I love the fact that this is a movie that takes representation very seriously. We, with our diversity of our cast, with our everything, like I love the fact that we're telling this story from a cultural point of view that I myself hadn't seen a lot of. And I really, as I developed the screenplay and as it eventually became the movie and as eventually it became something we could send out, into the world, I got more excited and more proud of this story that we were able to do and put together. So I hope it'll touch people in different ways. I hope people will take things out of it beyond, the first level that I discussed. But if all they get is, man, that was scary and that was fun, that's pretty cool. And I'm okay with that. But hopefully there are more layers to it that you can experience through the character's journey, through the cultural journey, and through the rest of the filmmaking that we tried to kind of put all together.
Yeah, we definitely tried to make this more of a movie you could watch twice, where there's the kind of initial plot-based horror atmosphere past, but then there's, hopefully it stands on its legs separately from that as like a underlying drama about a woman who's learning about her family or her culture and her people and finding value in that and connection, which I think Andrea and Bridget really captured really well. Like there's a sisterly bond experience that happens in it that I think is, even though they're not sisters even in the movie, but there's that thing that I think they really landed the plane on, that plays. And we're finding even, with certain people who watch it, like really that resonates with them. Hopefully more people as well. So yeah, I think we're proud of it on both fronts. I think it's pretty scary, and there's like something in there for every phobia. Scared of snakes? We got you. Body horror? No problem. Exorcisms? Check. So yeah, I think it's a fun. I wish more people could see it in groups, because I do think it's a kind of a group movie. Like I don't know if you've been to the Alamo Draft House, but those types of events, where people can yell at the screen, stuff like that. I think it has room for that, which is the really fun experience that I like from horror movies, is that group communal experience. So hopefully either people have a lot of family members in their home, or we'll get to go to a bigger festival or something like that in the near future. Yeah, does that answer? I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. I just that's obviously it for my question. So thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me.
Yeah.
Of course.
I will say that an unexpected audience member that was enthralled while we were watching it was one of my cats.
Oh,
I don't know if it was the animals that were in it, but she was sat pointed in the direction of the TV, and she was not asleep. She was watching it. Which
might have been either the rats or the death whistles.
I think the death whistle probably throughout it.
No, that'll get you. If you've got special hearing, you'll probably hear some notes in there that are unique. That's for sure.
It's funny you say that, because there are like a lot of different, speaking of animals, like there's all these different animal sounds like going on in the background, like around the compound, that we actually toned down a bit. Our sound designer put like a whole zoo out there. It's like, maybe a little less.
Goats.
There's always like, I'm sure if you're an animal, you'd hear all those little.
Yeah, what else? Bird, all kinds of birds, and all authentic, like real stuff that we've recorded. Our sound designer actually came with us to Puerto Rico and went traipsing out into the jungle on his own for hours and recorded a lot of stuff. A tree fell and almost crushed him. Like, he got all kinds of great legit sound effects that are all buried in there. So that might be coming through. We made this movie for the animals.
Well, I mean, people are going to be watching it from home, so pets are going to be around. So there is this whole other audience out there.
What's that in that movie Scrooged, where they're like, can't you just put some programming for cats? Like, put the mice in it.
We finally did it.
Yeah,
we did it.
I mean,
thank you so much.
Yeah, the first film she ever watched when she was a kitten was Pet Sematary, which was really like, are you sure you want to watch this? Okay.
For her then.
Yeah. I can't. There was I think it was Tammy and the T-Rex we were watching the other night, and she just turned around. She was not a fan. She was like, "What is this drag?" So
That's
she
a very specific audience for Tammy and the T-Rex.
Yeah. It was not the cat.
Not a cat movie.
Yeah.
It's not a cat.
Yeah, but yeah, I wish you guys the best of well with the screening, and thank you for taking time out of your day to have a chat about it.
Awesome.
Anytime.
Have you, on a side note, have you seen the rest of the movies that are playing at Glasgow Fright Fest?
I've seen 4 of the others. There's just the one that hasn't been made available. So I've seen all barring Run, Hide, Fight. So Vicious Fun, The Woman with Leopard Shoes, Out of This World.
Handouts? Anything you really liked?
Vicious Fun is exactly what the title suggests. It's an 80s serial killer slasher horror comedy that just sort of goes.
Well, I think I read your review of that. Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, it's
I wish it's so sad, and because there's so many awesome movies coming up, especially horror this year, and we're showing, we're in the festival circuit, and they're on the same docket as us, and we're not getting to see them. And we've got so many friends that made so many movies that we would have been, running into at all these festivals. And I think our Run Hide Fight, I think the Mondo Boys scored that. They did our movie we just released called The Mortuary Collection on Shudder, and Brea Grant did 12-Hour Shift, and that was playing at a lot of the same festivals as us. And there's just it's a shame that community part of just the festival going is also such a cool thing that we've been getting involved in the past 3 or 4 years, and that just got brakes put on that too. But one day we'll see movies again.
Yeah,
soon.
I mean, it was, Fright Fest, like the August one especially, is, as much as I'm only like half an hour outside of London, it is I'm going to book into a hotel, and I'm going to leave the husband in charge of the baby for 5 days. And that did not happen last August. And it's kind of looking like it maybe might happen in some capacity this August, hopefully. But, I'm kind of, I need a mommy holiday. So.
Exciting. Well, we really appreciate you spending the time. Hopefully you enjoyed the movie, and hopefully everybody else does as well.
She's waited right until I'm just about to end the interview to.
Our biggest fan.
Hey, we made that movie you watched.
Yeah. Yeah, she's been lurking around for like the last 10 or 15 minutes. So thank you for waiting. No one like you. But yeah, I will let you guys go, and I'll hopefully see you at a festival in the future, if the world ever goes back to any sort of semblance of normality.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
So,
Kat.
Thank you.
Yeah.